Hey everybody. I thought I could wait until tomorrow to give you an update, but my phone has been blowing up since earlier this evening, not just with the Facebook video, but just as a result of folks finding out about Rick's diagnosis. And so I wanted to do a quick update just to answer some of the questions that folks have had. So as you can imagine, lots of the people who have come in contact with us over the last few days, or let's be real, months, have had questions and want to know what they should do about it. So, hey, Jen, thanks for joining. I see we just have a couple people on, so I'll start over. Hey guys, just giving a quick update to address some of the questions and things that folks have had in the last couple of hours. I thought I'd be able to wait until the morning, but actually I have a nice batch of questions and I wanted to make sure I address those because folks are starting to send those to me in private message and text messages, and I had a carrier pigeon knocking on the door earlier. So anyway, I just wanted to address those questions. And first of all, say to everybody, thank you for all the folks who have reached out and offered your support and your thoughts and your prayers and your good juju and all the other stuff. We appreciate it. And your offers to drop things off on the door. We appreciate that big time because we're going to need it. And as well as the help. Right now, Willie's the only one here in the house. Annie's back in Alabama with her Mimi. She's been there since I was in Iceland, having a nice vacation. So Annie is not here, and we will need some help walking Willie because he's already nipping at my ankles and making me crazy. We've just got to make sure that we can safely put him out and get him ready to be walked without putting anybody at risk, regardless of whether or not I test positive. So anyway, we'll just leave that right there. I see that several other folks are joining, so I'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions, and you guys forgive me if I repeat those for those who are already on now. So there have been lots of questions about the quarantine, and folks want to know, are people watching you to make sure you're staying quarantined, or are you on the honor system? We are on the honor system. Nobody's watching us. Like I mentioned earlier, we are actually Rick says he sees them outside. They're not. We are actually at home, and it really is on the honor system. And I just want to make sure that I call this out specifically for my neighbors who may have paranoia. If you see me get in my car and go somewhere, I'm either going to the doctor or I am going to a place with no other people to walk the dog. They have not told us we can't leave the house. They just told us don't go anywhere where you're going to be coming in contact with people. As I mentioned earlier, when I was at the doctor's office, they didn't want me to touch anything. And it was kind of, it's not funny, but it was funny. The girl's like, don't touch anything. I was like, I'm not touching anything. And she said, we'll just bill you so you can pay, your copay. You don't have to touch anything. I was like, I'm not touching anything, I promise. So anyway. That's just something to keep in mind. So nobody is monitoring us. And when you talk about being in quarantine, I know that sounds really scary, but it really just means staying away from other people, right? Like, we're not at a hospital. We are at home, thankfully. It'd be awful based on our last few hospital experiences if we had to stay in a hospital. So the next question is, Rick quarantined away from you? Unfortunately, he is not. It's day 1 of quarantine, and I've already threatened him with his life several times. So he will probably be wishing later that he was quarantined away from me. As I mentioned earlier, he feels pretty crappy. He says I'm more of a man than he is because he just cannot handle being sick and feeling this bad. And so for all you ladies and mamas out there, you know that you just pick up your bootstraps and you do what you have to do. So I've been washing bedding. I've been trying to clean up the surfaces, trying to just, stay on top of things just so that we're not continuing to sit around in cooties. Thanks for all the people for the cootie love. Cooties are my favorite way to talk about germs. So anyway, Rick is not quarantined separately. I suppose if I were to be negative and there was some reason to attempt to stay separate, we could try. But for those of you who've been here, it's pretty hard to do anything except for sit in a room if you can't. it's not a tiny space. We're not like in a tiny house, but it's a 1,400 square foot condo, right? So it's an up and down. We got the living room, the kitchen, and a half bath downstairs with a laundry room. And we've got 3 bedrooms and 2 full baths upstairs. So it can be really, really hard to be able to, truly stay away. Even, let's be real, it's the same AC system. I will mention though, and oh shit. If Betty Ann is watching, hi Betty Ann, we have actually 3 air purification systems here with the HEPA filters because of my sinus and allergy issues. And so we have one. Actually, we have 2 in the bedroom and we have 1 downstairs. And so I will clean those out and make sure that they are, I just changed the filters recently, but we'll keep those going and try to do everything we can just to make sure that anything that's still circulating in the air is getting killed. So anyway, that's one of the extra precautions you might want to take if you're somebody who especially has issues with upper respiratory issues anyway. Okay, this question, I'm going to save this question for later, about being out of work. So just hang tight with that one. I'm moving it to the bottom. Okay, how do they check to see if you stay under quarantine? They're not. They are calling us daily, and I guess that is a bit of a check-in. Again, it really is the honor system. So they're just trusting that we are going to not be ridiculous and go out spreading our cooties to everybody just because we feel like we need to go. I don't even know what people would feel like they need to do, but you know how people are. So we are not out and about, and we are just on the honor system to stay away from people. So that means no visitors. That means we're not going over to anybody's house, Even I have some prescriptions that are ready, and I'm going to send somebody else to pick those up, and they'll just leave them on the front porch. So that's totally fine. Someone asked earlier if we can receive packages. We absolutely can. We just don't need to sign for anything. So if you want to send us something, I will make sure that I can provide our address. It's public information anyway, but if you want to send us something, feel free to send me a private message or a text message, and we'll be happy to give you our information. Someone asked earlier, did you get a flu shot? And I mentioned in the first video, I did get a flu shot, and my symptoms have been milder than Rick's. Rick did not get a flu shot this year, and he has been very, very sick. And so as much as I'm giving him shit, he really has been sick, and he has had a temperature that was really what was bothersome to us. So the temperature not breaking. And I will say, I've already heard from a few people, including Mike Kulik, if you're watching. Mike was very sick. Margie Lee was very sick earlier this year. Several other folks were really sick and could not seem to shake their illness. They were having the fever. They were having several of the symptoms that we probably didn't even know were a thing until later. And so, you've just got to kind of be aware. Someone asked me earlier if I would get tested. As I mentioned to you all, I don't recommend going to get tested just because it's not going to do anything for you. You're not going to get special treatment. You're not going to get special treatment. Nothing's going to happen. If anything, you're going to feel like a leper. So I'll just use that opportunity to say this experience has been a lot like being notified that you have an STD and having to call all your previous love interest to tell them that. So for those who are saying, one of the questions that I had was, are people being assholes? And I was like, mostly they're not, but actually a few people, have really not had much contact with us at all and have been very, very concerned. And that is it's just not helpful. And I would say if there's any way you can stay home, whether you've been exposed to us or not, truly, if you can stay home and not touch people and not touch things, it's just in your best interest to do so. And so just be smart about stuff. This is not the time to be buying tickets and going on some kind of vacation, unless you are prepared to handle what might happen if you get somewhere and they won't let you come home, which is what is on my mind. And I am not I'm not a person who scares easily. You guys know that. If you follow any of our travels at all, y'all, you know that we don't scare easily from most things, but it's just like, be smart. Don't be ridiculous. It's not a joke, and I'm not, thankfully, this is not a frenzy kind of situation. You just want to be smart. If there was some kind of a super flu outbreak, let's be real, that may be what this is, you would not be like, let's do all the things. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to say, let's be smart. Like, if I don't have to go do stuff, I'm not going to go do stuff. So, all right. Someone asked me earlier, is this widespread in Nashville? It is not. So as I mentioned earlier, Rick is case number 2 in Davidson County, which is the Nashville metro area. And he is case number 8 in Tennessee. We've had some questions about the type of testing that's being done, and we will check with the epidemiologist tomorrow to find out a little bit more about what the testing entails. But what I can say right now is the folks who've asked about that testing, several of them have been medical professionals or people who are immunocompromised. Jennifer, we do not have enough toilet paper. We have 2 rolls, and if you know your brother, you know that's not enough. So if you guys can send toilet paper, that would be appreciated. And so anyway, so the test that we have been given was administered by Vanderbilt University Medical Center, which is my healthcare provider since I've moved to Nashville, and it was administered by the doctor who oversees the clinic out at Mount Juliet, which is where we went just because we didn't want to cross town in order to get to one of the other clinics. And we certainly weren't going to go sit in the emergency room or whatever. So it's not that they have had, it's not that I don't know what other tests people would be taking. So let me just say that. And I don't mean to be a bitch about it, but I just don't understand what other tests people think that folks are taking. What I think is meant by that is that someone is saying, oh, I have the symptoms and I've been diagnosed. Okay. Rick was given the test where they stuck the swab up his nose, each side. And when he told me, I thought he was being dramatic. Friends, I just want to remind you, they stuck a swab into my brain and they shook it on each side, and then they jammed it down my throat almost to my toes and shook it, and my nose was still bleeding until just a little bit ago. So I was having a lot of pressure. I was still having a headache. I was having a lot of pain from just the test. So when I mentioned to you, don't go get tested just because you're like, oh, I want to know if I have it. It doesn't really matter if you've had it. If you've been sick, you can let people know that you've been sick and, take those kinds of precautions. But you finding out you have it is not going to give you any kind of special treatment. And I don't mean to be rude about that. A healthcare provider will tell you if you need to be tested because it's good for the population to be tested. Okay. So just make sure you're following your healthcare provider's advice. Someone mentioned earlier the hoarding of supplies and masks and stuff. So today, when they told me to come in for the test, they said, oh, wear a mask. And I was like, I don't have a mask. That's not how I roll, first of all. And Rick did have a mask in the car, but obviously I wasn't going to put on his mask. So when I mentioned that to the doctor, they just said, hey, oh, that's cool. You can wrap a scarf around your mouth. You want to cover your nose and you want to cover your mouth. You could use, for those of you who maybe are hikers, or if you're a curly girl and you use a buff, you can bring a buff up over your nose and mouth, and that will help protect from any droplets or anything that might come out. I was not really coughing until I started doing a lot of talking and a lot of stuff today, and so just be smart. So if you're going somewhere and you need to be out and about and you are not feeling well, it doesn't matter if you think you have COVID-19 or not. Cover your nose and mouth, use your sanitizer, and use soap and wash your hands. For folks who are in places where people are hoarding, I was just mentioning earlier, we really are down to 2 rolls of toilet paper, and I was on Amazon because I was like, oh, Amazon won't be out. Amazon Prime and Amazon actually are pretty much out of toilet paper. I was on Amazon Prime now, and there were not really any reams of toilet paper available at Amazon, but also at Whole Foods and one of the things that I saw on Amazon's regular site was that it was a case or so of toilet paper and it was going for $300. So, if you've been someone who literally went and stockpiled a bunch of like toilet paper, be kind to your friends and family and maybe share some of that love with them. Nobody's having anything weird happening here with like anything unusually gastrointestinal or anything like that. It truly is that that you just need it for daily life. And so we do have some wipes here. I just placed an order with Amazon Prime now, and they're coming tomorrow morning to drop off some groceries. They're going to drop off some baby wipes and things like that. And thankfully, you guys, just another mention, you guys have been so kind to offer all of your assistance. And believe me, I will be taking you up on it. We've got someone going to get us some food tonight because we have not eaten all day. If you're someone who's trying to watch your figure or would like for your figure to decrease in size, good news, if you get this, it's a lot like mono. You'll probably lose some pounds because you have no appetite. So we've really not had much of an interest to eat anything the last few days. You just feel crappy. It's an upper respiratory infection. And so when you have a whole lot of snot going everywhere, like nobody wants to eat when you have that going on. So anyway, I'll put that out there. Let's see what other questions, and then I'll review the comments really quick. Someone asked earlier if the workers who swabbed us are being quarantined. Not to my knowledge. Now, today when I went into the clinic, as I mentioned, they didn't want me to touch anything, which was fine. And then they took me into a room by myself, and I sat there for infinity. And then they finally sent in a nurse who took my blood pressure. She took my pulse ox. She took my temperature. Everything was good. My temperature was 97 something. Actually, it might have been low 98. My pulse was good. My blood pressure was good. And then the doctor came in and she listened to my chest, and she took a look at everything else, and she's the one who did the test. So she was wearing... Forgive me, Margie Wooten, if you're watching, I won't remember the proper terminology, but I believe it's infectious protocol. She was wearing a paper gown. She was wearing gloves, possibly double gloved, I'm not sure. She was wearing glasses, and she came in prepared to do the testing, including when she handed me the box of tissues. She handed me a very special bag to put any of my tissues in. I didn't just lift up the trash can to put my my tissues in the special trash can. So she gave me a plastic bag that we that I stuffed the tissues down in. So they're taking extra precautions. My guess is that any of these healthcare providers are probably doing the same things that I'm recommending to you guys, which is don't go touch people and don't be out. There's no reason for you to go do extra during this time if you don't have to. So, for those folks who, bless their souls, do this all the time and quite frankly come across things, in my opinion, much scarier than a flu virus or a virus like this. While it is scary, I'm not saying it's not scary. There are things that are really, really bad, right? So there are things that really make folks have some really terrible symptoms as soon as they get them and are really hard to combat. This is something that just has to run its course. So, just keep that in mind. Be kind to your healthcare professionals. Call your doctor. The best advice that we have is that if you have concerns, call your doctor. If you're not in Tennessee, you can Google the state name, coronavirus hotline, and you should reach somebody who can help direct you, and that's probably the best thing for you guys to do. I will post the Tennessee coronavirus hotline again here, and you can reach them. We did have to wait for about 30 minutes today before we got somebody on that hotline, and that was after we had been contacted. You don't get any special treatment for being diagnosed, so that was after we'd been contacted that there there was a diagnosis, and we were just trying to look for next steps. Okay, so that is that. I will say there have been lots of questions about being out of work. I'm very, very, very lucky that I have an excellent, I have a great employer with an excellent benefits package and everything else, but I also work from home. So today has been kind of a bust because we've been dealing with everything that we've been dealing with. But, I have been able to work over the last week, and will continue to be able to work. Rick has to go into work to get paid. And so, his employer has been awesome. We don't want to start naming names or mentioning people because we don't want to cause any kind of panic. We do not know where he picked up this virus. I was chatting with some folks earlier who wanted to know if it was there. Nobody has said to us where they think that it came from. We literally have just said he goes to work and school. So there's not a whole lot of places. For those of you who know that Rick used to do Uber and Lyft, he has not done that in a very long time. So it's unlikely that he picked up from somebody like that because he hasn't been doing it. So work or school would be the two places. But of course, he's gone to the grocery store, to the pharmacy, or wherever. And you just don't know where you might have picked it up because depending on the surface, those cooties can last for a little bit. What is happening right now, and nothing has been determined or nothing is firm, his HR department has reached out to him and they've provided FMLA paperwork. And luckily, when it was time for benefits election last year, he elected for short-term disability. It's very, very inexpensive per pay period. So if you all don't have that, I highly recommend that you get it. You never know when disability might strike you. So here's your public service announcement about that. Insurance is truly there just in case you need it, and in circumstances like this. I want to say it's something like 30 cents a pay period. It was very inexpensive. And so hopefully he will be able to, get short-term disability during this time that he is out. If you don't understand the way FMLA works, FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act, is there to protect your job. Okay. So FMLA is not pay when you're out of work. It's a job protection. That's the simplest way I know to explain it. I'm not going to go into all of this. So if you need to do further research or ask an HR professional, please do that. So you might have to take personal leave. You might have to take vacation leave or sick leave that would run in, that would coincide with your FMLA. If FMLA is there to protect your job, that's what it's there for. Okay. So that's why he will be taking the steps necessary to get his short-term disability, because we don't know how long this quarantine is going to last. So again, if you have questions about that, I can do my best to answer them, but specifically you need to talk to your HR department. And if you're not in a place where they provide protection from your job, there are all kind of reasons why folks wouldn't. Usually it's the size of the employer, or if you're a contract worker or something like that, then just keep that in mind. Okay, those are all the questions. I'm going to take a really quick look back and see what folks have had to say. And if anybody had a question, Rick's got jokes, so if you haven't seen that, take a look. Looks like everybody's just kind of giving their support, so appreciate that so much, guys. Again, I will update you as soon as I know anything else. Folks have been asking way too many questions and we have answers for. If you've come in contact with me, I will not have any answers for you until tomorrow morning. They called us this morning right at 7 a.m., maybe 7:30, when they had Rick's information, so just hang tight. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. Great question. Did they inform him if they have to notify his employer or school? Was it he expected to do it? Actually, they did notify. He had already been in touch with his employer because he's a good student like that, and had already reached out to them as well as to his professors. But the health department did follow up. I will say that his school has decided to. They're on spring break this week, so he hasn't been in, thankfully. obviously. He hasn't been in this week, but he was last in class last Wednesday. And they have just let them know that they're going to be canceling classes towards the end of the week. They're going to be doing some disinfecting just to be doubly sure that they have taken the precautions that they can to protect everyone there. Likewise, when he notified his employer, they contacted him within moments. We actually talked to them before he talked to the health department, and they were on it. And then later when we talked to the health department said they had already been in touch with his employer. We don't know if that was about another case or about his case, but everybody is working together for this. And, it is something that no matter what the issue is, when something is moving quickly and there are a lot of unknowns, especially something like this where Rick would not have normally been someone that they would have even tested. They only tested him because he wasn't getting better, and he kept testing negative to flu. He's not traveled anywhere in the last trip we took was in June of last year, on an airplane. He is here. He goes to work. He goes to school. So he has not been anywhere to make it such that he would need to be tested. And that's what I've heard from several of you guys, that you also haven't done that, but maybe you had some of the symptoms and you're worried because you're in contact with populations that might have issues. So I have several friends who have asthma. I talked to my dear friend Mark earlier. Kirsty, I know you have asthma. Any of you guys, take the extra precautions to stay home. But if you have any symptoms, make sure you reach out to either your primary care doctor, or in many cases, it may be best to reach out to your asthma, allergy, sinus doctor if they're one who's more familiar with all of the stuff that you have to work with. This is an unfortunate reality that we all deal with, that often we might not have healthcare providers who are taking our concerns as seriously as we would like for them to take them. I'm very lucky that I have amazing healthcare providers, and we've had really, any of my concerns are primarily met, and when they're not, I go elsewhere. That's only happened to me once so far. So anyway, make sure that if you reach out to an urgent care clinic or something like that and they don't know your history, that you don't stop there. So you've got to be your own best advocate, and your own best advocate for your family. So if you have a family member who is immunocompromised or something like that, and you're being hyper vigilant about things, and folks are not taking it seriously because you haven't traveled, just make sure that you are just staying on top of things. And again, talking to the providers who know you most, and getting their advice. So if you have not seen the last video that I just did earlier today, I offered some tips. I also uploaded the tip sheets that they gave me at the doctor's office. I will upload those in this thread as well. And it really just talks about the things that you want to do to manage the symptoms. So lots of things that are going to coat the throat and soothe the throat. Lots of things that are going to help. You want to do things that are going to keep the temperature down or help bring the temperature down. Do things that are going to help you be more comfortable. And then you're going to want to be just on top of cleaning. So I know if you don't feel well, you don't want to clean. I get it. I don't want to clean when I do feel well, okay? But just having to wash the bedding, having to wash down any surfaces that are the toilets, the countertops, any of those things, just keep a check on doorknobs, use Lysol spray, all of those kinds of things. That's what you want to do to make sure you're combating any of those cooties, even if you're not showing symptoms, because you could bring them in and you want to make sure that you're putting them at bay. Stay hydrated, people. So whether you're feeling unwell or whether you think you might have been exposed, just keep drinking water. If you swallow those cooties and they go into your belly, those stomach acids are going to take care of it. If you are already feeling unwell, you just need to stay hydrated. It's going to thin your mucus. It's going to make you much more comfortable. And as I mentioned earlier, it'll be good for your complexion. So make sure that you're staying on top of that. If you're not feeling like drinking water, and we weren't, we tried to get some some things that did not have caffeine. So I was drinking Pellegrino sparkling lemonade, which I think is really refreshing. We've been drinking grapefruit juice, pineapple juice, which is really good because it has bromelain, which is an anti-inflammatory. And it also has that thickness to it that kind of coats your throat and just kind of overall makes you feel better. So, take some of those kind of things, go with your gut and what you're feeling is going to be good for you. I've been intermittent fasting for the last several months, and this is something that I've had to give up. I had to listen to my body because there were certain times when I just knew I needed to drink the juice or I needed to eat something, and I had to just go with that. So if you've got any kind of strict diet protocols that you're trying to follow, please don't be ridiculous. Just listen to your body and do what's good for you. Again, if you have questions, please put them down below. I'll make sure that I respond to them in the next video. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now because I'm getting questions about if we really actually need food tonight. Yes, we do. And so I will be circling back with folks who have offered that. So if you've offered your assistance with us, I appreciate it so much, and I will be following up with you. We're definitely going to need a hand with Willie once we find out how to make sure we can hand him off safely. And I will just circle back to you as soon as I know not only more about my diagnosis, but also as we get more questions from you all. We're happy to be transparent. I will make sure that this video is public. I've just had lots of great feedback about the video. So thank you guys for that. Just keep those comments and questions coming. We are happy to talk to you about what's going on here in our household. And we just appreciate all the love and support that you all are sending our way. Okay, so thanks a bunch. We appreciate you, Biggs, and we will talk to y'all soon. Thanks a bunch. If you're just joining now, just go back and watch the video. It'll be uploaded really, really soon. It only took it a few minutes earlier to get loaded, so just go back and take a look at it. Okay, thanks so much. Appreciate you guys. Bye.